Merry Christmas. I'm Mark Carey, and today I'll be making sticky buns. So we'll start with getting the dough ready.
Combine the yeast, shortening, sugar, egg, and water, and then stir.
Now to the flour we put the salt, and I like to stir that in, and it's very important not to forget the salt. If you forget the salt in a bread recipe, yeast-raised bread, it's a disaster.
We want to combine the dry ingredients with the liquid that we've mixed up, and we'll just stir it up with a wooden spoon or whatever you have, and stir it until it becomes rather thick. And at some point you'll find it's just difficult to work with it that way, and then just clean off the spoon and use your hand to kind of knead the dough until it firms up so much that you can put it on the counter.
Now I'm ready to go ahead and put this out on the counter and begin to work it like this. You're stretching the dough more than anything else. And what I like to do is get into this rhythm right here where I'm just kind of pushing it and using the balls of my hand to squeeze the dough and to flatten it out. And that it activates the yeast somehow. Okay, we have the dough at a good consistency. It's nice and elastic, and it feels good in the hand, and it looks like it's ready. So before I put it back in the bowl to put in the oven to rise, I put just a little bit of oil in there, and just enough to kind of soak the bottom of the pan. And I roll the bread in it just a little bit, just as much to cover the bread as to cover the pan. And you don't need too much, but enough. And just roll it around in there. Make sure it's nice and oily. And what we're going to do is we're taking the bread and we're putting it in the oven. Like I said, there's my water boiling away. And I put the bread in the oven right in there, right under it, and it's ready to go. Okay, while the dough is rising, we need to do a few other things. We'll mix the the granulated sugar and cinnamon. This will go in the bread right on top of the bread right before we lay it out. And then we also need to make kind of what the sticky buns go into. And that calls for brown sugar and heavy cream, heavy whipping cream. I like to get it just as thick and heavy as I can. So I put that in a dish that I've already gone ahead and pre-greased, and I like to use butter. I use shortening in the bread because I'm looking for a lighter bread, but for the overall effect, a lighter bread with this incredibly sweet covering that we're putting at the bottom, and we'll flip it and it'll become the top. You've got so much sugar and cream, that's where the flavor is. The kind of a less sweet dough bread is just my preference. That's how I like it. If you want a sweet dough recipe, there's several of them online, and they're very easy to get. But we'll go ahead and we'll put the brown sugar down on here, and I think I put some measurements on there of approximately what it is. By the way, you can buy the brown sugar at the candy store, and you can get it there. I think there may be other places in town that you can buy it, and if you know where other places are, please let me know. So I put down a nice thick coating of this brown sugar, and you want to, this stuff, the cream will spread, so I just put it down somewhat lightly at the beginning. Okay, and once that's done, we go ahead and we mix the cinnamon and the sugar. Well, our dough is about doubled in size, and so it's time to go ahead and flatten it out and get it ready to turn into sticky bun. I'm going to go ahead and put a little flour down, and we want to make sure that as we work the dough, it doesn't stick to anything really. And so we'll go ahead and pull it out, flip it over.
You want to make sure you use enough flour so that the dough does not stick to the counter or your hands or rolling pin. And then you just flatten it out, smoothing it out, trying to make it about a centimeter thick and in a kind of rectangular. As you work the dough and stretch it out and such, you want to continue to test it to make sure it's not sticking to the counter or anything.
You want to have some softened butter ready.
Once the dough's ready, you put the butter on it. You just kind of spread it all over as evenly as you can. I kind of like the feel of the butter on the bread, so I use my hand, but you can just as easily use a spatula. Once we have the butter down everywhere except for along the edge at the closest to you, we put the cinnamon and sugar mixture onto the bread. And we just kind of spread it as evenly as we can. Coat that. This kind of keeps the little layers separated when it's done baking and you're eating it. Makes it kind of nice. Put a little bit of extra cinnamon on part of it. And now we're going to roll it up. And as you roll it, you want to be careful not to pull the dough, but just to make a roll of it and as tightly as you possibly can. Maybe a little bit of stretching, but very little stretching, mostly just rolling it up tight. And then we use water to moisten the end so that we can wrap it up and pinch it tight and seal them up this way. Once we have the dough rolled out, we want to bring the pan back and we're going to add the rest of the cream just to make sure it's fully covered with cream. The next thing I'm going to do is put some pecans down. Now this is optional. Some people like pecans or walnuts or almonds or raisins, but you can have it without any of these things just as well. The next thing we want to do is cut the roll into its various slices. Now we'll put this on a cutting board and we'll use a knife. You can do it other ways, but I prefer a knife. And the first thing I do is I cut it in half, and then I cut each half again in half so that I have a total of 4 pieces. And now in each of these quarters, I want to make 2 cuts, and that'll give me a total of 12 slices for us to put into the baking pan. And we'll go ahead and place those in the baking pan one at a time there.
This will nicely make a dozen, and these ought to rise and fill the pan but not overflow. It should work just about perfectly. There we go. And here they are. And we'll let them rise again for about an hour. And I'll put them back in the oven. I haven't started to preheat the oven yet. I'll do that after these have raised. I'll take them out and give it 5 or 10 minutes to heat up.
And this is what they look like when they've finished rising.
I wanted to tell you how I learned to make sticky buns. When I was 16, I ran away from home. I came from a troubled home and was very rebellious and wild and such. And I ran away a long way. I was out of money. And I wound up getting a job in a bakery. And I learned to make them. After my conversion, I met and married Sarah. And we had 2 kids. And Sarah was a great mom. She helped our kids love the Christmas season and Advent season. I particularly didn't like it at all. But I participated. And at some point in our family, I started making sticky buns. And it's become kind of a family tradition that we make them at Christmas time. Okay, well, here they are. This is what they look like on this side. And what we want to do is to get a cookie sheet or something And we'll put this over them. And we'll put the cookie sheet on it like that. And then we'll just flip it upside down like, and then we remove the cover. And there are the sticky buns. Well, there we go. That's how you make sticky buns. If you try the recipe, let me know. And may God bless you this Christmas and all the days of your life.